Well, hello, White Sox fans. How you guys doing tonight? Welcome to another edition of White Sox Daily Live. My name is Ian Eskridge. I'm here with my co-host, the Danny Miller. How you doing, Danny?
Doing well. You know, it's been an eventful few days here for the White Sox, even if it wasn't exactly what we've been hoping for the past few seasons now. As anyone who's been following the White Sox well knows, we were kind of hoping to be in the midst of a playoff run. And the window of contention was supposed to be absolutely wide open at this point, but unfortunately, things have taken a turn in the exact opposite direction. So, that being said, I feel like the events of the last few days have kind of signaled exactly what we talked about last week, and at least we are making some sort of a push in a direction, and that makes me at least a
In
little bit
a
happier tonight.
direction.
Yeah, in a direction. The White Sox have signaled quite strongly what their intentions are here at the trade deadline. And, you know, like I said, that kind of just makes me a little bit more happy than what we've been watching on the field here in 2023. So, yeah, not doing too bad. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I did get the response from somebody on Twitter saying, "Well, at least you're happy." With all the minor league stuff, which I mean, is not 100% accurate. I would prefer that the White Sox play good baseball than having to trade away a bunch of people in order to try and restock the system. But I have kind of been of the opinion that every single trade that the White Sox were involved in were overpays. And those are the kind of trades that you want to be a part of. And, especially, given the results that the White Sox have had, the best that one could hope for in this complete cluster of a season is to at least make some good trades.
Absolutely.
So, in that respect, yes, I'm happy. Overall, the White Sox are very frustrating, and I don't really have a full answer for you as to why they ended up the way they did. But
I don't think anyone has that answer, including your front office, your manager, or even the players themselves. Nobody can put a finger on
yeah,
what on earth
clearly
is
not the
going
front office. Yeah.
on. Right.
But yeah, I mean, overall things are good. Me and you hung out the other day. That was nice.
We did. That was awesome.
Yeah, we went over to. Let me see here. Bring that up here. Sound Growler Brewing, band that I mix for. They played over at Sound Growler over in their side room over there. That was fun, and we partook of some of their beverages and their delicious steak burritos. Um, that was a
French
good time.
fry stuffed steak burrito was fantastic. Gotta
It
say,
was. Yeah.
yeah, every last bite, including the bite that I shared with the lead singer of said band that we went to see, which
He thought it was good.
happens. Yeah, happens to you've been doing sound for them for a while. I happen to be someone that was a regular at the same establishment that serves adult libations. Many moons ago, and
It's a
Will and I.
bar.
There you go. Will and I got to be, I wouldn't say we were the tightest of friends, but when you see the same person and you're having drinks with the same person, maybe multiple times a week, you get to have a little bit of a camaraderie, and it was really good to, be able to come out and reconnect a little bit with someone I hadn't seen in a long time. So yeah, really good time was had by all, I would say,
Yeah, it
on
was a good time.
Thursday night. Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. All right, so I guess I will mention that the White Sox did win a couple of games. So
Hey,
so I mean we'll go ahead and just casually mention that. I don't know I don't have an answer as to. I mean, we've had this conversation before that if the White Sox started trading people off, would they possibly go on a run? And at this point, I mean, they waited so long, I don't think it would really matter anyway. Um, but I'm really hoping. I believe they have the fourth worst record in baseball right now, and a 13%, like 13.6% chance of the first pick. Um, I'm not really hoping that it gets any better at this point because at that point it's counterproductive. Unless, and this is the thing that has been said before is that the only way that it is productive is if the guys that you are playing are going to be here next year and after that. So I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that on August 2nd, either Elvis Andrus has been sent to somebody for a steak and French fry burrito, or a bag of balls or something. Otherwise, DFA him. I'm kind of the opinion now, if you can't find somebody to take Grandal before the trade deadline, DFA him, try and clear him through, and hopefully somebody bites and says, "Hey, trade him to us," so he doesn't go completely on the market, and you get something for him. Otherwise, I say they should cut him loose because now they've got a problem that the White Sox have not had pretty much ever, is that they have too many catchers. And the issue being that these are catchers that you're hoping that are going to develop,
Right. Contrary to what White Sox Twitter will tell you, that the White Sox were in huge, major need of catchers in this free agent market, which I'm not going to completely disagree with. To be able to pry away a top 100 prospect switch hitting catcher in that first trade that we saw in Caro. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic return. Like you said, there, no complaints on the returns there, but White Sox fans seem to think that there were no other catchers in the system that were capable, and unfortunately, that's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, but major league catchers that are available. So since the trades have been going on, there has been a little bit of jockeying in the system. And, Evan Skoug was released last Monday. And so after that, that kind of cleared up some kind of stuff in Charlotte. Sebastian Rivero's still there. Carlos Perez went back down, so now he's there again. Now you have Adam Hackenberg there, who got bumped from Double-A. And you also have Xavier Fernandez, who also got bumped from Double-A. But, I mean, I'm under no, false hope that Xavier Fernandez is going to become the catcher. I mean, he's kind of, and I won't disrespect his catching that badly, but he's kind of in the mold of Yermin Mercedes, where he's, he is a catcher, but that's not his strong suit. His strong suit is the bat, and I think he was hitting something like 460 or something in July down in Double-A, so they bumped him up. And then they moved up Victor Torres. Went straight from the Cannonballers. He went to the developmental list, skipped the dash, and went straight to the Barons. So, and then you acquire Caro, which we'll talk about that deal in a few. And you also acquire Corey Lee. So now you have another catcher in AAA. You've got Carlos Perez, Sebastian Rivero, Adam Hackenberg, Corey Lee, all in AAA. And I might even be forgetting somebody. In fact, I probably am, because I know that they didn't have They might have only had 2 catchers at the time, but I mean, we've just got catchers coming out of the wazoo now, everywhere. And Michael Turner didn't get bumped, and I assume that they didn't bump Michael Turner because they want him to still get reps in advanced A, because
Right.
he's a good catcher. So you don't want to block him with Caro. It's just a there's so many catchers now, and there's not enough teams to hold on to all of them. And that doesn't
No,
even,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I mean, it's just, that doesn't even account the 17-year-old Venezuelan catcher that we signed and is playing in the DSL and just started in the DSL All-Star game hitting third, who got a single in his first, at bat, and he's hitting 409 in the DSL. And you got, four catchers or 3 catchers in low A, between Claunch and Pineda and who else am I forgetting? And they moved Ivan Gonzalez. They bumped him up as well. I mean, it's just, we now have 15 catchers for 4 teams. Not really, but I mean, it's just the whole thing has just like gotten packed with catchers. And the White Sox have confirmed one thing. They will have 2 catchers on the major league team. 1 or 2 of these guys is going to be the starter and the backup. You don't have this many catchers and not at least have a backup and a starter, especially with one of them being, I think, what was he, the 65th out of MLB, top 100.
Yes.
So, yeah, the whole thing is just.
And as soon as he comes over in the trade, he slots right into the 3 spot in your, overall in your farm system.
I think he's actually 2.
Depending on where you look, I think Baseball America had him 3 in our system. Just because
MLB Pipelines 2.
Yeah, because it was just a couple weeks ago with the midseason rankings. We knew Colson Montgomery was going to be in that top 100 because he started the season, like 38, 39, depending on where you look, somewhere in there.
You're saying he's going to be top 10 now.
Right. I think he's probably going to move up. I don't know if he's going to be top 10, but he's definitely going to move up by season's end into the offseason when they do those rankings. But at the midseason point, Noah Schultz goes from being outside of the top 100 to being ranked 44. 44. And the guy didn't even start the season. Right. Well, maybe
44. I thought he was 100. Well, he's 100 on MLB Pipeline. I don't know what they did with him on.
They just did their midseason rankings like a week or 2 ago. At I think it's Baseball America or Baseball Prospectus, one of them.
Yeah, it's Baseball America probably. I'd have to look.
Yeah, he moved all the way up to 44.
Let me go ahead and take a look here.
But going back to the catchers before we, get off on a tangent on those guys. That's something that the White Sox have not been able to say maybe ever in the history of the franchise, that they have an ungodly plethora of catchers within the system that, on paper, most of them look like they have the tools to be or to develop into MLB roster spot holders. I'm not saying that any of these guys are going to be absolute stars. We kind of hope that, Caro is going to fit into that role, because it looks like, being that he is the highest rated catching prospect in the organization right now, you're hoping that when you trade away Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, that you're getting back an MLB caliber player. But you like you said, you go down the list of all those names, pretty much most of those guys have the potential to at least be, crack an MLB roster. My thought on that is the entire organization that MLB is, not just, the White Sox team, but all these teams out there, catching prospects have been kind of one of those, spots where there hasn't been a ton of strength over the years. And if the White Sox can stock up on these guys, they might be able to turn a couple of these prospects into maybe some more trade bait during the offseason. They develop the guys they want to develop. They shuffle some of the other guys to fill some holes that are going to be left behind at the end of this trade deadline, and again into the offseason as well. So I don't know if they'll parlay it that way, but it's definitely not a bad position to have a little bit of wiggle room to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if we aren't looking at, after the trade deadline comes up tomorrow here, Yaz being gone. And there are rumors swirling about that the White Sox are trying to give him away. I mean, I think I'm fairly positive they're probably going to have to eat a bunch of salary to be able to get anything of any value in return. Maybe there's a couple of guys in whatever team that they trade him to. If they can manage to find somebody.
I think the report that's coming out that Bob Nightingale, using the actual terminology, is a quote give away Yasmani Grandal. I think comes for exactly the reason you spoke of. There are going to be some guys that are going to need to be moved around and shuffled. And one or two of those guys is going to have to come up to the MLB roster in order to make room for everybody. So I believe Yasmani, one way or another, is going to be gone, even if they do have to eat some of that salary. If not, you might see him. No, you might see him get the old DFA. White Sox really probably don't want to eat all of his remaining salary, but it's possible that it could happen. Seby's days quite possibly are numbered in that, for the same reasons. And let's be honest, Seby has not been something that most White Sox fans would miss. He's filled a role in a hole in a roster spot, and that's about all.
Yeah.
So, I think the White Sox are they're basically trying to make some room for some of these younger guys to come up, maybe get a little experience. Some fans will say it's got to suck that we've got to start these kids, clocks when we have to do, but the reality is development doesn't stop when you get to the major leagues. This season is a throwaway season at this point. You might as well let these guys come up, get a taste, develop with the big league club. I don't think it's going to be anything that will hurt them. And you still got the whole off season to, kind of get back together and get back on track at a pace that's, a little more likely to get the kind of development you want out of these guys. So I'm with you. I think there's going to be some moves no matter what here in the next 24 hours.
Well, one move has been made already, and that is Colson Montgomery is on his way to Birmingham. So I think
About time.
was, I mean, I personally think it was a week or two late, but hey, he wasn't there for all that long. I think he was there for like 20 games or something like that. So at least there's that. So let's talk about these here trades.
What?
Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez traded together again, end up with the Angels. And the White Sox receive Edgar Quero and Kai Busch. Kai Busch made his first start with the Barons the other day and didn't go great, you could say. I think he gave up 7 runs. Let me take a look here. I think it was 7 runs in like 3 1/3, if I remember correctly. Where's this guy? I know he's on here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the next page.
Not great.
Yeah, not so great. He's got 18.90 ERA, 7 runs, gave up 12 hits, 1 walk, no strikeouts in 3.1 innings. And he's not a strikeout pitcher anyway, so it wasn't like, that big of a deal that he didn't strike anybody out. But, anyway, he's a left-handed pitcher with a plus slider and a good fastball. He's more of a command-type pitcher. He's got a decent curveball, decent changeup. He did not, I will say this, he did not look comfortable at all in his first start. And the weird thing, like the thing that was kind of strange for me is that if I remember correctly, I have to think about it, but I'm almost positive that Carroll caught him. So he's throwing with his normal, the battery mate that he's had. So that was I kind of thought that maybe he might be a little bit more comfortable, but clearly things did not work out well for him. And also, the other real issue being that they were playing the Shuckers and Jackson Churio, Valeria, Tyler Black. You got two of those guys. Black and Churio are
number 1 and number 2 in
in their system, but Churio's number 2 on MLB Pipeline, and Tyler Black is like number 45.
Right.
And Valeria is in their top 30. There's like 2 other guys that are in their starting 9 who are in their top 30. They're a couple of their pitchers, all in the top 30. They ended up getting swept in a 6-game series, and I mean that whole series was difficult to watch, and that game was no different, other than the fact that they were down quickly, and it didn't stop. Although,
and the other thing I want to say is even if you are throwing to your normal battery mate, we got to think about these are some young kids who probably a week ago had no thought that they were going to get traded, because it sounded like Anaheim was going to be sellers until they went on a little bit of a run and decided it's probably now or never if we're going to do this thing with Shohei. And, maybe Mike Trout comes back and finishes the season at the end of the year, or if we get into the playoffs, maybe makes it back for a postseason run, whatever his timeline is. Did he come back recently, or is he still out?
Who's that?
Like Trout.
I think he's still
He's
out.
done.
I think he's
Either
still
way,
out.
I think, they were playing, well for a while there. Made some moves in the standings, and just decided last minute, you know what? We don't really like what we're hearing on Shohei Ohtani, what the returns are going to be, and we're actually playing some decent ball. So we're gonna become buyers instead of sellers. And I don't think any of these prospects really thought they were going anywhere. It's probably a shock to the system to not only go, hey, you're not staying here, but you're going to go to the White Sox and you're going right now. So you're getting that, and it's not comfortable to make a move if you do know it's coming.
Yep.
So we'll see how he continues on over the next few months, but I'm not going to judge the guy on his first start after being moved over, especially since, we're talking about a young kid who, when he was drafted, was throwing 97 miles an hour and has no signs of slowing down. So, he's definitely the type of pitcher that the White Sox seem to adore, where it looks like he's going to be throwing, possibly triple digit heat on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but the thing that's awesome is that he's left-handed.
Here you go.
The White Sox have and the awesome thing is that you go from having no left-handed pitching to Noah Schultz, who is ranked 41 on Baseball America, top 100.
Oh, pardon me.
You have Noah Schultz, and then you have Kai Busch, after that first deal. So, things looking up here, as far as left-handed pitching, we were talking about earlier about how the White Sox hadn't had a left-handed start in, 150 games or whatever it was until whoever it was that made the start. Was it Tanner Banks that made the first left-handed start?
Tanner Banks.
Yeah.
It was indeed.
So, yeah, I'm happy with the trade. I thought it, the value that was provided for 2 expiring contracts, you weren't going to get any better value than that. And, I had heard rumors that if somebody was going to be traded from the Angels, it would likely be Carroll because he was a top 100, and they already have Logan O'Hoppe, who has had a shoulder injury for the year so far. But that's where they were going to get to be able to get return value for whatever they were looking for when trade deadline came. And lo and behold, there it is. So yeah, pretty happy with that trade. Although I got to say, real bizarre seeing Gio and Raylo in Angels jerseys. That was bizarre.
Yeah, the red is it jumped out at you right away. There was a shot that I saw on Twitter of Giolito sitting in the dugout, and I had to do a double take. Like, is that really him? It looked like a completely different person to me at first. I had to literally stare at it for a minute. And go, yeah, that's Lucas Giolito.
You talking
Sure
about the
is.
one with Otani?
The one where
Yeah,
Otani's got that look on his face, and Lucas just kind of looks over his shoulder with a little sly grin. That's the one.
yeah. He's got to be pretty stoked to have him as a teammate. I mean, number one, the
Absolutely.
guy's one of the best hitters to ever live, and then second off, he's a pretty stinking good pitcher too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Dodgers fans, not real happy right now. Angels fans, probably not extremely happy with the way things have started out for the guys they picked up, but I'm sure they'll be pretty happy with the outcome in the
yeah, well, I mean, it's not like Edgar Caro has really been tearing it up per se in Double A, but the thing is that they were really aggressive in his assignment to start this year, moving him straight to Double A and skipping Advanced A. But the one thing that did continue between Low A and Double A is his OBP. The guy still walks a ton, and that skill set has transferred. He's still a very selective hitter, but the power has dropped off a little bit. I think he had somewhere in the high teens for home runs last year, and this year I think he's got 3 in Double A. So, look for as he gets more comfortable and gets used to the skill level, you hope that power does go up a little bit. I will say, seeing him run the bases, he's athletic. Which after watching Yaz and Sebi is a welcome change. I mean, we'll see what happens before Caro makes his way up there, assuming that he does. But I watched him behind the plate. He's nimble back there, and on the base paths he can move too. So, I think he's 2 for 11 with a walk right now. So it's not like, and they're both singles. So it's not like, I'm fawning over his hitting at this particular point. But
No, and it is Birmingham too. It's not exactly the place where you go to hit with a bunch of power. So you kind of hope that maybe some of those extra base hits come into play with the cavernous outfield there. But I wouldn't expect his power numbers to be anything that's going to jump off the page while he's in Double A anyway. Even as he does get more comfortable, you might see a few here and there, but I'm not expecting him to just come out and have a 25 dinger season
no.
next year if he stays in Double A all year.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening, but
no. Now, we can kind of keep an eye on that situation and see how things go when he makes the move to Charlotte. Assuming that eventually does happen. That might be a little bit of a different story, and we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah. It says in the comments, it says top 100 should be viewed with a grain of salt. And I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, so you won't get any arguments here.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at what's his name? New York, the Yankees guy, the shortstop. Blanking on his name right now.
I'm sorry. I was reading chat and I didn't catch your question.
The shortstop, Volpe, the shortstop for the Yankees. The fact that guy was ranked so high, after watching him, I was not impressed, and that's one reason why I agree that these ranking systems favor younger guys, not necessarily, and projectable stuff.
Right.
And right now I think Volpe's on track to like strike out like 450 times or something. Not really, but I mean, it's just yeah. And New York prospects always overhyped. Um,
This is 100% true.
yeah, and I mean
You
it's
know,
like Jason Dominguez, same thing. I mean, it's not that he's necessarily a bad player or that he won't ever be good, but like they were saying, oh, look at his body. The guy's gonna be the best baseball player to ever live. Just look at his body, and it's like,
he's
and he
got a
play
hot girlfriend.
baseball. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Moneyball. Oh yeah, guy's got an ugly
Yeah,
girlfriend. He's got no confidence.
no
He's gonna be
confidence.
terrible.
Yeah, and that, to go along, just to kind of piggyback on that, talking about the top 100 prospects, I feel the same way about farm system rankings as well. Because that also plays into those top 100 prospects. How many of these top guys a certain farm system has, and with a flawed ranking system the way it is, we've seen it time and time again where guys are ranked in the top 100. They fall. Some of them never make it to even see an MLB ball club. Others, they make it and they kind of fall flat on their face. So there's definitely some flaws there. It's all about, like you say, trying to look at the projectables and go from there. And nobody really knows what's going to happen. So you do kind of hope that when you get these guys like Colson Montgomery, who is actually showing some skill, obviously, and some pitch selectivity that is not something that we're familiar with here in the White Sox system. And the guys like Noah Schultz who are 6'7", 6'9", left-handed pitchers. Again, something we're not familiar with in the White Sox system. You kind of hope that stuff does project a little bit better than what we've seen in the past. And the same thing with Carroll. He's a bat first catcher. That's something we are have been made pretty well aware of. Every article that's been put out since the trade has kind of said, of the such. But like you say, there's nothing to say that he isn't going to be a halfway decent defensive catcher as well. He is nimble. He does move pretty well behind the plate. And of course, he's young. He's 20 years old and in Double A already, and there is time for him to develop his skills. So, we kind of cross our fingers and hope that some of the moves that have been made within the White Sox organization, as far as scouting and strength and development, you kind of seem to find that mesh we've been looking for years here, and we finally start to see some progress in those areas.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that people have been complaining about forever and a day is the developmental team, and I mean despite the how many times I mentioned that the development team has been turned over in the last few years. People still are banging that drum like nonstop, despite the fact that some of the hitters have made some, turned some big corners and have changed what they're doing and improved in the last few years. But we don't need to talk about that. I don't want to get into that right now.
No, I will say this though. The one thing I do want to kind of touch on, we touched on it a little bit last week when Nick was here. And by the way, I kind of wish Nick was back with us with some of the moves that have been made and all that we
Yeah.
talked about last week. It'd be really
Yeah.
kind of cool to rebut.
Yeah,
But
maybe we'll revisit that soon.
yeah, if you weren't here last week, I would say, and you're listening to the show, whether you're live with us or you're listening to the podcast later on this week, I would say go back, have a listen on that before you are come back to this one, and you'll kind of see some of the projections and things that we talked about come to fruition, and you know you can kind of find the rebuttals tonight. But awesome show last week, and Nick is doing his thing on his own,
Yep.
listening to his show, so he's making some of his rebuttals. So if you're not going to listen to it here, go ahead and check him out over there
Oh
on
yeah,
Locked
absolutely.
On Stocks or Good Guys Talk Back. But going back to what I was going to say, the one thing I will say is I'm not on the same page as everybody calling for the front office to be completely overhauled. Or, Pedro Grafal is not without his faults,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
he, but
They
he's,
all
but
have
he
their
has been
faults.
right. Every manager does, but to say, I mean, there has been some times I said it last week where he looks like Tony La Russa revisited with some of the moves that he makes, and I'm scratching my head going, "What's going on?" But at the same time, I don't really fault Rick Hahn for the failure of this rebuild and this team because as you and I have spoken about, uh everyone and their brother, anyone who was a baseball person, the experts all out there thought that during this rebuild, Rick Hahn had really fleeced some teams.
Yep.
They all these trades were the bee's knees. Rick Hahn can't go out and play ball for these guys.
Nope.
He can only put together the best team that he thinks possible. Now we can talk about, maybe the scouting department fluffed on some things, but it sounded to me like just about every scout. I mean, and there were major league scouts out there for other teams saying that was a great move and the White Sox are going to be dangerous. So, in order to, blame Rick Hahn for everything that's gone wrong with this team, I think is kind of an unfair assessment of the
Yeah.
work that he did during this rebuild. He can't go out and play for the players.
Can't keep them healthy.
Can't keep him healthy. Can't force his owner to spend the money in strength and conditioning and development of those players. Uh, I think there's a lot of heads that need to roll, even though we're throwing all the blame on Rick. I'm not saying he's without blame, but I feel like it's kind of it's kind of wrong to direct all the blame, and I get it.
I would agree with that.
The head of the snake is always going to get the most, but you know, it is what it is. I digress. I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the way that he dispersed his budget that he did have was ill-advised and
that I'll agree with.
Yeah, I mean, just badly conceived of. Like I don't know.
$50 million plus on a bullpen was like, come on now.
Yeah, not entirely sure what that was all about. But I mean, yeah, he can't play for the players. He can only go on what is ultimately told to him by people who are evaluating the talent. And I mean, he can make decisions based on that mixed with his own feelings and everything. But I mean, Eloy, Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito, Dane Dunning, Reynaldo Lopez. I mean, like all of those guys were supposed to be phenomenal. And, Eloy's hurt all the time. Yoan Moncada's hurt all the time. Michael Kopech is, I mean, this is one thing that like really just hit me last night when people were complaining about Kopech not, having good outings here as of late. And blaming the front office for Kopech and, and saying that, the developmental team can't develop anybody. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, well, Michael Kopech is a 100% different person than the guy that they got. He's not a powerlifting, angry kid trying to throw the ball 110 miles an hour anymore. He's, between TJ and between his own personal issues that he's had throughout his life, dude's a completely different guy now.
He is.
So
he is.
And it's like, yeah, his command never fixed itself. But, and this is one thing that me and you have talked about is that I was worried that him not being a power lifter and being like all jacked up anymore, if that was going to change his pitching profile. And it certainly seems that it has.
Yeah, sure has.
I mean, also command is the last thing to come back from TJ, but I have to imagine that this other stuff is probably the actual reason for the issues, is that he's just a different guy now. So what they did develop and what we thought we were getting when he came up and he had that, and everybody showed up for his first start and everybody was oohing and on.
Yeah, you and I sat together for that game, did we not?
Different guy, yeah. So, yeah. Kind of, yeah, it's sad. And it's unfortunate the way things have worked out. But, I mean, literally almost every prospect the White Sox had got from that entire time period, nobody's satisfied with anything that they're doing. Luis Robert, right now, for the last
Yeah,
month,
finally,
that's what everybody's happy with.
finally.
Lucas
But that took
Giolito,
a lot longer than anybody wanted or expected as well.
we have not once had everybody on the team firing on all cylinders at the same time since this entire thing started. Either somebody's hurt or underperforming or just always or just turned out to be bad. So I mean, you can't, nobody's got a crystal ball here.
No, no, and there's with the trade of Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn, whatever, he was getting old. He definitely was not the innings eater that he once had been because he couldn't get past the fifth inning this season. He had a hard time getting out of the first inning without throwing 30 pitches, of the better part of the 2023 season. Uh, but we've got some major holes in the rotation, and right now it looks like Michael Kopech is your anchor for the starting rotation. So the White Sox definitely have some work to do in the upcoming off season for sure. Especially if we're to believe the rhetoric that's being spewed right now is we're not in a full on rebuild. We want to be competitive in 2024. Well, they did shed some salary. But as it's been pointed out to me in other chats, there are guys that are due some raises this year. So some of that salary, doesn't necessarily look as good as we thought it might. But at the same time, those guys were going to get those raises no matter what, the guys that are still going to be here in 2024. So, getting rid of some of that salary definitely helps. But we're going to have to spend some money. The White Sox are definitely going to have to spend some money in the offseason, and you hope and pray that the scouting department has kind of turned its past gaffes around and find us something, because if not, we're in for another long season or two or three before some of these younger kids start coming up. And we hope that those guys become the guys that we were hoping for and being told they could be. Because as we've seen 2016, 2017 and beyond, we were told all those same things. And here we are, we weren't expecting to be where we are today. So but like you said, there have been some changes, there have been some moves. Uh, we're just waiting to see now if those moves are gonna be fruitful as compared to the ones before.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the other trade that was made, which um, is Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly for Nick Nastrini and Jordan Leisure. Nastrini immediately becomes the White Sox best right-handed pitching prospect. Coming over, he was the number 9 Dodgers prospect. Leisure was not ranked, but it was said by Jim Callis that if they had done a re-ranking, that Leisure would have jumped into the top 30. Also, for I know I said it for Giolito with Giolito and Reynaldo because they were both expiring contracts. For a starter with a 6 ERA and for a reliever that's been injured for half the year, and yes, he did have some good time, and I'm not, and I like Joe Kelly, but for Joe Kelly and for oh yeah, and I forgot about Trace Thompson. Can't leave out that one. The reemergence of Trey Thompson, but I have to say, since Lance Lynn can't get left-handers out, and they've got 1,000 OPS against them this year, I'm pretty happy with the return. And we haven't seen Nastrini or Leisure yet. Leisure's being assigned to Charlotte, and Nastrini's going to AA. And I put some video out there on our Twitter account. If you guys haven't seen that, you could see what the pitchers look like. Leisure, lots of fastballs, lots of carry. Um, Grimtall had linked me, had uh, tagged me in a Dodgers like more or less kind of like a White Sox daily for the Dodgers, and they were talking about his extension and how he gets 7 feet of extension out from the mound. And I mean, I could tell watching the video on Leisure that the guy gets good extension, and that fastball just carries, and it doesn't drop. It continues at 98 miles an hour. It's nasty.
Yeah, and that's the kind of fastball that's going to throw hitters off in the major leagues because when you get that kind of ride where, they say it's almost like a rising fastball because you're used to seeing that one that kind of drops off a little bit and this thing just rides, never really drops. It's going to confuse a lot of hitters and you're going to be able to blow that high one past a lot of really good hitters. So,
Yep.
like you said, maybe he doesn't project real high in the rankings, but there is some potential there.
Yeah, and I mean Nastrini, I will say like I hadn't watched, I don't watch much Dodgers minor league stuff. I like to because I know that their prospects are generally pretty good. But I'll be honest. I don't have that much time. I'm already watching 4 White Sox minor league games plus the White Sox, so it makes it kind of difficult. So I went and kind of scouted him out a little bit. Um, I he throws more breaking balls than I thought, and they're pretty nasty. So
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to seeing him pitch. The Barons rotation is pretty interesting between Kai Bush and Nastrini and Thompson and Mena. There's some good stuff going on there, and it should be. Yeah, I mean, the Barons have been hard to watch, other than like the first week of July when they looked like they were coming out of their shell. They've been
Yeah.
tough to watch.
Handful of Christian Mena starts, looking good. Some of them, you could give back, but again, seeing the potential there. you know, again, but we're talking about guys that are a year or two away. Uh, the starting rotation for next season. I hate to keep bringing it up. I hate to beat that drum over and over again, but I just find it difficult for the White Sox to be competitive in 2024. I think this is more of that, you know, uh, GM talk that we have kind of grown accustomed to as White Sox fans. So, maybe not 2024. 2025 could be interesting if everything continues to go in the right direction, but don't get your hopes up, folks.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing was is that you were supposed to have Burke, you were supposed to have Davis Martin. Davis Martin has TJ, and Sean Burke's been on and off hurt the entire year. I think he's got like 4 starts or something like that.
Garrett Crochet again, coming back from injury and then decides
Shut down again.
he gets shut down again. We'll probably see him get stretched out a little bit this season with the White Sox when he's ready to come back, which I'm hearing is not that far off. So, that's a plus, but thinking that he's going to be ready to be a full-time starter next season is probably not the right train of thought to be having. We might see him get some starts, but I doubt that he's going to be, a fixated piece in the rotation anytime soon. So
Yep.
yeah, it's going to be tough for a little bit.
So I want to briefly mention the Kendall Graveman trade as well. Since I might as well hit all of them. Kendall Graveman traded for the number 5 Astros prospect Corey Lee, catcher. He's had a little tiny taste of Major League baseball. Didn't hit particularly well. Known as a fielding first catcher. But I will say, he's playing for Sugarland in the PCL. And as far as the PCL goes, he has the second worst park for hitting in the PCL, and he's still putting up pretty decent numbers. And I mean, I know he plays away games and whatever. I didn't look at his splits for home and away, but he's still putting up pretty decent numbers in Sugarland. So I kind of think that he might be productive player, and he's Andrew Vaughn's roommate from college, and they're good friends. And I know that it was mentioned in chat that about Vaughn's ranking in the top 100 and whatever. Yeah, that's
Yeah, not looking real pretty at the moment.
not looking like a true representation of what he's put out yet. But I have to say, I'm happy with the returns on all the trades.
Yes, I mean, for what you put out, what you gave away, you couldn't expect more back. I mean, we're talking about guys like you said, Lance Lynn, who's 36 years old and really on the downswing of his career, and he's put up a 6+ ERA. Lucas Giolito, although not at his best, was pretty. He was okay. He had a rough start to the season, and kind of found it to put it together. And he was right around a 4 when they traded him. So you knew you were going to get a little bit back for him. But we're talking about rentals for the most part on all these guys: Ronaldo Lopez, Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn. Some of these guys, had club options for next year, but along with those club options, usually comes a buyout. So teams aren't really on the hook for a lot. And for the White Sox to get some value back was pretty stinking good, in my opinion.
Yep, I have to agree with that. So moving along here, last thing I wanted to hit this week. We have roughly about what time is it? It's about 10 o'clock. Yeah, it's about 10 o'clock.
Close.
So we have about 14 hours, 15 hours until the trade deadline hits. I believe, is it 3 o'clock tomorrow?
3 o'clock Pacific time. I think it's.
Oh, is it Pacific time?
I think it's 5 o'clock our time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, regardless, we've got less than a day until the trade deadline hits. Today on Parkins and Spiegel on the Score.
I knew where you were going.
John Morosi said that
their
he
new
thinks,
nickname.
Yeah, Parkles. He says that TA is gone before the deadline tomorrow.
John Morosi.
You buying it? He doesn't. He doesn't. He didn't say. It was like a quick fire.
Yeah, I think
segment.
I saw something. I think I saw something on Twitter about him saying he thought it would be a weird trade deadline if Jeimer Candelario was the best position player traded.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, we all knew that the pitching market was gonna be pretty ripe. I didn't expect the position player market to be so quiet. We have seen a flurry of things kind of happen this afternoon and early this evening where some position players have gone, but Jeimer Candelario, really? So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I buy the whole TA thing. I think the White Sox have to get a decent amount of return, especially the way Tim's been playing lately, and the fact that he's controllable beyond this year with his option next year. And he comes cheap. You're not going to be able to find a shortstop on the free agent market in the off season that's going to come in at his kind of contract numbers.
No,
anywhere close. So if the White Sox are going to be hard pressed to even deal him at all. I know we talked about it. I thought there was a possibility, when we talked about this last week, that he does go. I'm kind of neither here nor there on it, really. I won't say that he's a clubhouse cancer, but he's definitely been a distraction. We're all standing here talking about it. I'm sorry.
Oof.
What's up?
So you're telling me that you can't find very many 235 hitting shortstops that hit singles only on the market?
I'm not. Well, I mean, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is, if you look at his production over the past,
trust. Yeah.
And now that he seems like he's, kind of found whatever it is. They said he worked on his swing, for months and months and months, and he was coming back from injury. And since the beginning of July, he's been on fire. And then the other night we saw, he finally got his first home run of the 2023 season. Maybe Tim's
He
back.
crushed that thing too.
But at the same time, like I said before, as Tim goes, the team goes. When Tim's good, the team's good. When Tim's bad, the team sucks. And that's unfortunate. And if we can't see that level of consistency out of him, I'm not going to be mad if he does go. I just want to make sure that the White Sox, I'm hoping that the White Sox get the return they deserve for him,
Yeah. So
regardless of the first half of the season.
Yeah, as far as the names that you've heard thrown around, that are the ones that are quote unquote shocking. TA, Eloy, and Cease. Do you think any one of those three is gone?
Well, I'll say this. This afternoon, Bob Nightingale come out, and we know Bob Nightingale on the bat phone to Jerry's office. He comes out and says now that all of a sudden Dylan Cease and Aaron Bummer, of all people, are untouchable. They have become untouchable. I guess the returns that the White Sox were hoping for maybe we're not reaching their expectations. So it sounds like those guys have been taken off the table. Eloy, I find difficult, because I think the White Sox are going to be high on the price. Obviously they're going to entertain, they're going to take calls. You have to. As a GM, you can't say, I'm not even going to listen, on these guys. But I would say the price is probably higher than what the White Sox are going to be, getting in return. So I think Eloy stays. And then who was the other name you threw out there?
It would be Eloy, Cease, and TA.
TA.
Yeah, I mean we talked.
I of the three, I would say TA has got the best shot at going, but again, it's going to have to take a decent haul to send him into another city.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was figuring. I will be pretty surprised if any one of those three gets traded. But and we've seen how this whole thing's worked out. I mean, I had somebody mention to me, well, the White Sox aren't going to trade their second best player. And I was like, well, he only plays 100 games a year, and 40 of those are spent rehabbing coming back from being injured. So he's really only playing 60 games a year. So he's only your second best player 60 games a year. So
yeah, third of the season or less.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and you're going to get the best return for Cease with having the extra year of control. But I would be pretty surprised if they traded any of those three guys. I would say that TA would be my least shocked one of the three, but especially with the $14 million option and the fact that they are saying that they're going to be competing next year. Like you had mentioned, who's your starting pitching? You're going to have Kopech, Cease, Clevenger if you pick up the $12 million option, so it's going to cost you $16 million to have him for next year.
Right. And as it was mentioned in the chat a little bit ago, the starting free agent pitcher market this year is kind of on the weaker side.
Touki Toussaint.
He
did have a really nice game the other day, and he's had a couple of them.
He really has shown, some resilience coming in to the White Sox organization and doing some things after being shuffled all over the league for a while there. So, it's quite possible that you see Touki in a starting role at least part of the season next year. You never know.
Yeah. And you know what? I've always thought he had, I watched him, come up through the Braves system. I didn't watch him with the Diamondbacks, but Officer Doofy, the farm system has some decent talent. They need to trade the useless and build around Colson's well, I will say that the rankings need to be redone, and I've been posting. Yesterday I posted the new re-ranked top 30 with the new prospects. And hey, Rudels, how you doing?
Rudels.
But the thing is that they don't have any, like Elko's not in there, Jacob Burke's not in there. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that just aren't in there that need to be in that listing. I mean, for crying out loud, Yoleki Cespedes. Yolki is is still your 16th ranked prospect
Right.
on MLB Pipeline. Like that guy hasn't hit, and like thing is, I want badly to like Yoelqui Cespedes. And we had an episode earlier this year where I was like talking about how much better his eye had been. The problem is you can't use a 70 grade power tool when you are hitting with a 30 grade bat to ball, grade. It doesn't, it doesn't work. So I would be pretty sure that I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped out of the top 30, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week or the week before, where sure they worked on his pitch selectivity, and it seems to have done things for his walk rate and his K rate, but unfortunately, it's also done some things with him. Actually, when you shoulder the bat, you can't hit the ball hard, so it's had a little bit of a negative effect there. So I don't know what to expect. Maybe it's something that he works his way through in the off season, and we see a little bit different Uwalki next year. But like you say, there are some guys that are ready to graduate into that top 30. So you mentioned Tim Elko. Sure, he's down at the lower levels right now. Uh, and I want to ask you, when do you think this guy gets promoted? When do we see him in Double A?
I would imagine it's probably. I mean, I would say mid-August, maybe. If he continues what he's doing right now, because his average just keeps creeping up. He's hitting, I think,
I mean, the guy's killing it.
yeah, I think he's hitting 314, and he's got like a 1,050 OPS or something like that. And the guy just nothing but extra base hits. Well, I won't say nothing because thing is his strikeout rates dropped.
Right. He's
And
aggressive on the bases. He's quick. Defensively, he looks smooth.
it's a decent first baseman. I mean, I don't know, there's been some awesome tweets on the thing. Andrew Vaughn better watch his back, which is at this point it's still funny, but I mean, if you give it another couple months and he's still out there banging away.
Well, Andrew Vaughn's got the foot issue. You hope that resolves itself at some point before next season. But let's be honest, it's another one of those things where the White Sox seem to we're just going to keep throwing our injured players out there. We're not even going to give them the time they need to rehabilitate, and it's going to be detrimental to his numbers for the season. You can't tell me that that's not having an effect on his gameplay.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like the psyche has probably taken a toll for the way that he has been handled, and it's certainly probably not helping at all. I mean, one thing that came to mind yesterday is just like, I mean, is it possible that the White Sox haven't drafted enough winners in the past? And they were looking more at stats instead of looking at guys that have that killer instinct. Tim Elko, guy went to the College World Series with no ACLs in his knees, went out and hit 3 home runs, and he gets drafted by the White Sox. Nobody pays him any mind. And, last year, longest season of his life. So, I would imagine that took a toll on him mentally and physically,
Absolutely.
But this year, the guy just keeps hitting.
Smoke show.
And
Absolute
when
smoke show.
guys are on base, he hits them in. So, maybe the White Sox maybe getting some winners into the system that are used to winning won't put up with the culture that the White Sox have built on the minor league system that has been losing records for years and years and years. I mean, they don't have what. I mean, you look at the Tampa Bay Rays system, and every year, every single one of their minor league teams is winning.
Yeah, and they are known for. I mean, they pull prospects from other teams that really don't look like a whole lot. And then they come out and they do things that were just not expected of these guys. And I credit not just their development team there, but their scouting department just seems to find guys that I don't know if these guys are just pouring over, eons of tape on each one of these players and finding like one little small hitch or one little small thing that they just need to touch on and turn these guys into superstars. We've seen it with
Yeah.
Randy Rosarino when he was pulled away. We've seen it, IKF who started there and it got traded away has now become a star where he's at. They just had a bunch of guys that come through their system and do things even after they leave Tampa. They continue to go on and do things. So
I think that it's like them instilling an attitude and a winning mindset.
right, and you would hope
That
that some of these young guys in the White Sox organization that have that kind of mindset can have some influence on some of these other players. We talked about it a little bit with Zach Remillard coming up. This guy comes up and he's been held back for so long, and he has done nothing but hit his entire minor league career, and he's been held back because guys like Yohan Moncada got a big early extension. We you got Jake Berger, who is this big prospect that everybody talked about, and even during his injury back, and is he going to be the same? But it was still all Jake Berger. Nobody was talking about Zach Remillard. Zach Remillard gets his taste, and he goes out there and he plays with all the heart in the world, and
yeah,
he
I
does
mean,
what Zach Remillard's doing.
I will say I think that part of the reason why he was held back, Leori and Danny Mendick, because Danny Mendick is Zach Remillard to a point. He is a try hard utility player that can play all over the place, and whenever you put him somewhere, he's going to do what needs to be done. When he comes up in a bat, he is going to do what the team needs.
Right.
And that's why he was held back, and the thing is that he came up and he's doing his thing.
I'm just throwing Zach out there because he's an example of, what you kind of hope to see with this new young cast that's going to be coming through the system, as opposed to some of these guys who, I get it. It's easy to get down on yourself when you're not performing, but then there's that other part of it where they just look, they look lost. They look uninterested at times. Sure, a lot of these guys are fighting through injuries, and they've. It's difficult when the entire starting lineup is going through, some things all at the same time. But
yeah, whether it be physical or mental or emotional with their personal lives because they're doing something stupid, I mean, it's just there were so many different circumstances that affected the White Sox this year that there's not one single answer that's going to be like a blanket for what happened to this team. But man, what a train wreck.
The Danny Mendicks when they came up and the Zach Remillards when they came up didn't let any of that affect them. They just said, I'm going to go out there and, like you said, I'm going to be a tryhard. This is my shot. This is my opportunity. I'm going to take full advantage of it. So, again, you hope the scouting department has found those guys that are going to play with the passion that has gotten them to this point in their careers and not get a payday and say, you know what, I'm a little dinged up. I got a bruise on my pinky and, I can't play today, coach.
Yeah.
I got a hangnail and I can't run to first base.
I mean, it might be perfectly possible that these guys' legs are about to fall off. Well, and that's why they can't run and they're being told not to run. I mean, but here's, like we talked about this until we go blue in the face, and we have talked about it. If they don't put them on the IL, then whose fault is it?
Right.
It's the front offices, because they got to put these guys on the IL. You can't put guys that have legs that are about to fall off in the starting lineup.
And you're asking your first year manager to field a team when you've got 3 guys who are on your bench that are dinged up, and you got 2 or 3 guys on your field that are dinged up. You're hamstringing. And speaking of hamstring, maybe we should change the White Sox logo to a torn hamstring. Just put that on a hat.
Yeah, well, I also, I got Tony running across here. I don't want to make it seem like it's only happened to Pedro, because the same thing happened to TLR.
Right.
That Pedro was saying, "Oh, I'm going to choose his bat over his legs." And, we can sit here and talk about how, ridiculous that is, but I mean, it's happened multiple years in a row. So clearly it's a philosophy priority
Organization goals.
problem. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Anywho, so um, we've got a day left here, a little less than a day until we see how the trade market unfolds, and I'm sure there might even be possibly a couple moves after that, depending on how aggressive they get with things. We'll see if anybody else moves here in the next day, and we'll see. We'll also get our first looks at Nastrini and Leisure.
Right.
We'll get another Kai Bush start. We'll get another week of Edgar Caro starts, and we'll see how he comes back. We'll get to see Corey Lee in AAA. This is going to be a good week, for at least as far as I'm concerned, getting eyeballs out there and seeing what we got back. Because that's always one of those things. Is like I can sit here and read, scouting reports from Baseball America, blah blah blah. But until I get my own eyes on them, I don't like to just parrot out information. So,
Right.
So I think until next Monday, I'm just gonna have my eyes peeled and see what's going on there. You got anything interesting coming up this week?
Not particularly. No. I am gonna spend the weekend doing some tubing, on the Tippecanoe River in a
TPK.
good old Indiana. So I'm gonna spend some time out there, but I will definitely be keeping an eye on the situation on the south side here. Like you said, looking for first looks at some of the process that traded over, and you never know. We might see another move or two before the end of day tomorrow. And as that comes on, if we see something of extreme value, maybe we'll do a quickie. What do you think?
I won't be able to.
Yeah.
Actually, me and Mr. John Rudels tomorrow morning are going down to do some scouting. Not really. We're going to the Cardinals Twins game tomorrow. And on Wednesday, we're going to Kauffman to go see the Royals versus the Mets. And then, and then we're going to hang out with family for a few days. Kind of got like a mini family reunion for my mom's side. So we're going to go hang out down there and hang out and go see some Clydesdales. And it should be fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what we got going on.
Very nice.
Yeah. So we will reconvene next Monday. Hopefully something interesting, hopefully I'm hoping for another trade.
I think a lot of fans are looking for at least one more.
I mean, you got Keenan Middleton expiring. You've got Grandal expired. So I mean, I'm hoping that we get
this works.
I'm hoping that we get another wave of a couple of trades here, and even if it doesn't end up being like anything, groundbreaking or anything, hopefully they have identified some guys, in other systems that can profile nicely for the White Sox and hopefully help them out in the long run. I'm not expecting anything huge for either of them, but
I'd be happy with one, maybe two DFAs that are holding up some positions of interest.
Well, I mean, if
leave it at that, we've spoken enough about those.
Yeah,
things.
If that trade deadline hits and there are a couple of guys that haven't been moved, launch them. Andrus, Grandal, out.
See possibly even Sabby.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm actually shocked that he's lasted as long as he has. I was expecting him to get, launched a few years ago, And no, seriously,
I
you
think
know,
most
because
of us were.
in the minors he had stopped hitting. He couldn't remember
Right.
how to hit, you know?
Right.
And it's like he came up and he hit okay, you know, enough to stick around because he's labeled a defense first catcher, which is 100% not the case. He's
Well, you remember during
okay
that time
catcher.
too, it was like it was Zach Collins, Sebi Zavala, and
Well, yeah.
the aforementioned Yermin Mercedes were
Yes.
the three top catching prospects in the organization, and we
Woof.
saw the shuffle back and forth where this guy'd get 2 games, in a Ricky Renteria season, and another guy would get 2 or 3 games in a Ricky Renteria season while Yasmani Grandal is down with a foot or a back or a thumb or whatever it is, and none of them, not a single one of them, really did what we hoped for.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Except
combined all
for,
three of them,
Yermin.
if you
Yermin didn't
combined
catch.
all three of them, you could get a 250 hitting catcher that still couldn't catch. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Sebi's better than the other two, but I mean, like,
Yeah, his defense is something that you want to hang your hat on.
yeah,
But if you took Sebi's defense for what it is, and you gave him your mean Mercedes bat, you might have an all catcher.
yeah, that would be fine. That would be fine. I take that.
Unfortunately, we can't. This isn't, Dr. Moreau's island that we're working on these things here. So
It could be. So yeah. So anyway, until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you guys on Monday next week, and hopefully we'll have something interesting to talk about. Hopefully there's a couple win streaks going on in the minor leagues, and hopefully the White Sox don't win too much because we don't want to tank that draft position. So at Daily White Sox on Twitter, whitesoxdaily.substack.com. You can find written articles. You can search us up on YouTube if you are not watching us on YouTube currently. You could also search us on Facebook. We have a page on Facebook. My name is Ian Eskridge at iEskridge on Twitter. My co-host, the Danny Miller. You can find him at Danny Miller WSD on Twitter. You guys have a great week, and we will talk at you guys next week. Thanks. Have a great night. All right, cool. I have to pee. I'll be right back.
yeah.